Hi, I'm back today with one of my mini Amigurumi projects. As I mentioned before, this is a book of mine, so I'm okay to do this. There's no copyright issues. Now, let's find what we're going to be doing. Where is he? We're going to be doing Tom Turtle. There he is. Now, this is Tom Turtle in the book. Now, as I mentioned before, these are designed for miniature amigurumi, so I'm just going to put that to one side and I'll show you what I mean. The original one was this size. Can you see him? See, there's a little tiny guy there. Now, I know there are some that go out there that can go a lot smaller than this, but this is a pretty small size, talking a 1mm hook and a number 8 anchor crochet cotton. It's not a bad size to work with, but you might need a little bit of practice if it's something you're not used to. So one of the best ways to do this is make it in a larger scale. So here we have his big brother. He's done in a double knit yarn, so he's still quite small really, isn't he? But clearly not as small as this little guy. But this is an easier size to handle if you're not used to working in the small scale. And then I'd recommend you go down hook size and yarn size as you go. You could also do this in a larger yarn. You could do it in a chunky and you're going to get a little sort of bit larger, not a lot larger. This is also done with a 3.5mm crochet hook. So again, you could go up to a 4, which is quite comfortable for double knit. Entirely up to you what you decide there. So this is the little guy we're going to be doing today. We're not going to be doing his tiny brother, but as you say, if you want to do that, you can try different size hooks and yarns to see what you get from there. So I'm going to pop him to one side and I will leave little Tom Turtle there. Now, apart from that, I've got my double knit yarns, my toy stuffing, as I've mentioned, my hook, my scissors and my needle. Now, I've got some, I was going to say safety pins then. I have some normal sort of sewing pins here as well. I'll show you what they're for. You don't have to use them, but there is a reason for them. I find it helped me on a particular project when I'm doing the top of his shell. So we can look at that later. So we'll put that to one side. We'll put all the other bits to one side as well. And we're going to start with our green double knit yarn. I've rolled these up into little balls. I've already done some of his body, so you're not going to have to watch all of it, and I'm actually going to work from the book. Now I have actually retyped up the pattern. Let me find him again now. I shouldn't have closed the book, should I? Where are you, Tom Turtle? Come on, there we are. So there he is again. So as I say, even though this is designed for the finer yarn, it's exactly the same pattern. And I have actually popped it on my blog, so I'll pop you a link onto the blog so you can have a little look if you don't want to follow it in this system. So like with all my amigurumi, I'm going to start with my slip knot, and I'm also going to drop the yarn down there a second, and I'm going to start with 2 chain. I know there are other methods, but this is just my preferred method. So there's our 2 chain, and within that 2 chain, like nearly everything else, I'm going to start with 6 double crochets. That's 3, 4, 5 and 6. Quick reminder, I'm working in UK terms, so if you are using American terms, you will be looking at a single crochet at that point. But all amigurumi is usually done in this base double crochet stroke single crochet, unless there's details. For example, there is a treble thrown in around this side, but usually amigurumi is just the 1 stitch. So from there we're going to do 2, if I can get into there we go, 2 double crochets into each one. So we've got the 6. If you've looked at my other videos, you'll go, oh yeah, they all start like that. They do. This is the beauty of amigurumi. It does keep its system quite simple, so it's easy to manipulate for that as well. So I think that was 4. I'll do a quick count in a minute. Remember, 2 in each, 2 double crochets into each double crochet. You find after a while it just feels right. Now that doesn't feel right, so I know there's got to be another one. So I'm just going to do a quick count, just 100% check, remembering I'm counting from this end, not this end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. That's good. Tighten up that slip knot to make it nice and neat in the centre. So if you've done a good slip knot, you're going to get a nice tighten point at this point. So we're going to do just a double crochet round. So 1 double crochet into each of them. So I'm going to be counting 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, nearly there, 8, oh, nearly went in the same one, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So I've got 12. So obviously I've increased a little bit now. I'm going to have another increase round. Now it's entirely up to you if you use a stitch marker. I am going to just take a little bit of this yarn, or if you have, I've got loads of stitch markers. I don't know why I use bits of yarn, but I do find quite often I've forgotten where my stitch marker is, so I end up grabbing whatever contrasting yarn I've got, and I'm just going to push it through there. And it's just a rough marker, because obviously, like I'm talking to you, it's easy to get distracted with the counting, and you don't want to hear me count constantly either. Now for the next one, we're going to do 2 double crochets in one, then 1 in the next one, and that's going to be alternated all the way around. So we've got a 2 in 1, a 1 in 1, and again 2 in 1 and 1 in 1. You will be doing this 6 times. Now again, if you've got a stitch marker in, you don't have to over worry about that counting. If you want to make sure your work is very consistent, or if you're having to make multiples of an item, it is quite important to actually do the counting. If it's a one-off, you do sort of get away with just the stitch marker system. So 2, oh, or not, that's 2, and a 1, and a 2, and a 1. Are we round? I think we need 2 more. 2 in 1, 1 in 1. Now we've actually increased, as I say, 6 times, so we've got 6 extra stitches now, so we're up to our 18 mark. Next one is just going to be a double crochet round, nice and quickly. I've got my marker, so I'm not going to count, because as I say, I talk too much, so I end up distracting myself and forgetting where I am. Nearly there. These little projects are also great for scrap bits of yarn, or stocking fillers, or little gifts for somebody. They're just a nice little bit of silly, that's all. Help if I went in the right stitch, wouldn't it? That's because I tried to rush and then you end up doing it wrong. And it's always worse if you think somebody's watching you, which clearly you are watching me because I'm doing the video. I find I always go wrong more if people are watching. Nearly there. Again, I'm using the stitch marker as a guide rather than counting, so I'll go there. Remember to move your stitch marker every so many rows though, because your positioning on Amigurumi will change. So now we have a double crochet round on each one. I'm actually going to move my stitch marker now. I wouldn't always, because I sort of, when it's my own work, I'm allowed to guesstimate a little bit, but when you're doing it, you want to sort of keep it nice and accurate. We have an increased row, and we're going to increase again by 6, so this time we're going to end up with 24. So we're going to do 2 in the first one, and then we're going to do 1 in each of the next 2. So that's 1 set. We're going to do 2 in the next one, 1 in each of the next 2. We've got 2. Let's see if I've counted right now. 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. 2 in this one, still working in that double crochet, 1 and, oh, nearly, and 1. Still got a couple more to do. So we've got 2 in the next one, 1 in the next 2, 1, 2, not quite there. 1 more time, 2 in this one, 1 in the next 2. So I'm as near as damn it over where my stitch marker is. Can you see how it's starting to curve up a little bit as well? Now that will flatten out a little bit, so don't worry, because I know when you do his tummy as well, it looks like he's going to be quite round, but you do find by the time you've stitched him and put the detail on and things like that, it does flatten off by quite a bit. We're going to have 1 last round in this green. Again, it's going to be an increase round, and again it's the same as the last one. It's only a 2 in one and 1 in the next 2, but this time it's going to be times 8, so you're going to be doing that 8 times. So we got 2 in 1 and hopefully that should bring us round to our stitch marker again. And then we're going to be getting ready to change your yarn colour, just to do that little bit round the edge. It sort of makes him look a little bit like a pork pie, I think, but he is quite cute, so I'm quite pleased with it. I think tortoises and turtles can look like pork pies or pies sometimes. We're nearly there, halfway. 1 and 2. 1, 1, 1 and 2. So remember, it's 2 into 1, bit of fluff there, 2 into 1, 1 into the next 2. Just double checking that I'm staying in the centre there. 2 in 1, 1 in 2. Looks like we've got a couple more to go, because remember there's 8 this time, not 6. Nearly lost that. Beauty of crochet, it's only 1 stitch. 2 and 1. I think we have 1 more. Yeah, can you see how it sort of goes flat there? So I know I've not gone all the way around. As I say, you get a feel for it after a while. You don't always have to count as much. And round. So that is basically the green for the top of his shell. It doesn't go any further, so I'm going to take that out now, and I'm just going to cut this yarn off because I will be needing it in a second or two. And I'm going to bring in this nice, I suppose it's a brownie biscuit, well, dark biscuit perhaps, I don't know, light chocolate. It doesn't matter. Your turtle doesn't even have to be green. These are just the colours that I picked out. So I'm going to be doing the bit that's going to make this little crinkly bit all the way around him now. So I'm going to join the colour in first. So I am literally going to pull it through for this. I'm not going to over worry about whether I've joined it perfectly or anything, because you're not really going to see it. I need to tie those 2 in a minute. I haven't forgotten that. So into that one I've just done, I'm then going to do a slip stitch. Tighten it up. There we go. And into the next one, I'm going to do 2 trebles. So 2 trebles in 1 stitch there. Then I'm going to do a slip stitch into the next one. Then I'm going to do 2 trebles. So you can see what I'm doing. It's going to be alternating 2 trebles, 1 slip stitch. The slip stitch takes it lower. You could do a double crochet, but I don't think you get as much definition if you do that. Nearly there, slip stitch. So you can see we're just getting a little bumpy. I mean, on that side it looks quite different. You can either do it, you could have turned it around and done that effect if you wanted, but I've gone for it so it sort of sticks up rather than curves round. So 2 nearly said double crochets, then 2 trebles even. 2 trebles again, remembering we're using an English terminology here, and a slip stitch. So bear with me a second while I go around this. If this is a bit you're happy with, just fast forward it. You get yours done, and then you can just pause me and come back to what I'm doing next. Obviously everybody watching, they're all going to be at different levels, so I have to work at if somebody is a beginner, not just somebody who is experienced at doing it. If you are experienced, you can perhaps just go and grab the pattern off my blog and get on with it without even looking at what I'm doing. If there's ever any problems with the patterns on the blogs, or if you do spot a mistake or anything, just let me know, because I won't have intentionally done anything wrong, but sometimes when you are typing things up you can make mistakes, or if you're copy and pasting any bits and bobs on your work, sometimes you forget to alter the number or something like that. So I'm always quite grateful actually if somebody finds an error and tells me, and then I can always alter it from there. Can you see how it's curling up on him now? 2 trebles, 1 slip stitch. Nearly there. Now I have pre-prepared some of the other items. It is a very fast make, probably an hour. You're going to have a little turtle, I would have thought, if you know what you're doing. You might be quicker if you know what you're doing. Everybody's different, it's not a race. If it takes you 2 hours or if it takes you 3 hours, it doesn't matter. Or if you do it bit by bit. I have a tendency to do that with a lot of my things. You know, I might partially make something, then go on to something else, and then come back. So I find it hard to do the timing, because I generally don't work like that. At the moment I'm just doing dozens of little hats ready for Dollycon, which I'm quite excited about. Should be a good day. 2 trebles, 1 slip stitch. Let's have a look how many stitches have I got left. 1, 2, 3. That sort of leaves me a slightly odd number, but it's not the end of the world. Sometimes if you've started 1 stitch 2 sort of in front or 2 behind, it can do this to you. Oh no, I think we'll be okay. 2 trebles, and my final slip stitch is going to be in the first stitch you started working from. Pull that tight. I'm just going to tie a nice long piece of this because I want this to sew the top of the shell. So I've cut it quite long because I'm going to use it for something else. First of all, we do need to just pull that through, tighten it up as our slip stop, and can remember we had these 2 bits. I do need to tie them because I don't want them coming undone. Because they're sitting on the inside of the shell, you can just tie a knot. They're going to be just tucked in, so you're not actually going to see them, same as these bits. The only reason for maybe sewing them in is if you find it irritating, they're getting in your way, but they're going to be inside his tummy, so you don't have to do that. So that's that bit. Now I'm actually going to do this decoration after I've stuffed him because I found it easier to sew it then. You don't have to. You could go straight to making that little pattern now, but I'm going to do it the other way around. Sort of cheated. As I said, I've made some other body parts here. So I've already made his tummy, which is going to go there. And I'm going to use the tummy one to do the sewing up with. So I'm just going to roll these up and tuck them out of the way. Now remember, I'm also going to be using this one to stitch detail. So I want that one out of the way as well. Now picking up my sewing up needle. I'm a bit cross with myself because I've actually lost my favourite one, which has got the point on it. These bit blunt for me. I don't like working with the blunt needle. I like it to be sharp, although these are traditional wool needles. Oh, I don't know whether you can hear that tinkling. That's one of the cats. So I'm going to start at this side so it doesn't get in my way so much. So from here, I'll just put the 2 pieces together. Now I'm actually going to pick up where the brown is. So I've picked it up there and stitched it. I'm picking it up and stitching it. Now everybody has different ways of sewing up. This is just my choice. But as I say, I'm sewing up on right up onto the brown bit. So you can see I'm picking up where the brown is, then 1 part and up. Picking up where the brown is and round. Trying not to split the stitches, not always easy. That's what I really don't like using these blunt needles. I would recommend, if you can, I know you stab yourself occasionally, but go for a sharper wool needle because it's much easier to get into your stitches and you're less likely to split your stitches if you've got a good needle like that as well. I've got the faintest idea what I've done with it, and I think I'm going to have trouble finding one because I think it was one I acquired from my mum, so it was quite an old needle. Oh, nearly. As you can see, it's nice and neat the way it's stuffing in. Right, I think what I'll do is the long one I'm going to leave to the outer side. The short ones I'm going to keep in the inner because I want them to hide inside, don't I? I think sometimes the sewing up takes longer than the actual putting together. Putting together, that made no sense, did it? Than the actual crochet even. Nearly round though now. Make sure there's no gaps. That one doesn't want to pick up because you don't want stuffing coming out. And please remember, these aren't really things that are suitable for small children. They are more of a collectible object, a fun sort of object for an older child or an adult even. In my house, the adults get them as well as the kids. And my granddaughter's 4. I'm quite happy her playing with most of these, but I certainly wouldn't then give them to my grandson, who is only 7 months. So you do need to think about that. Right, I can now stuff that in, get it out the way. Also means I've got less stuffing to use, so I can just shove that in. I do use a proper grade toy stuffing. Usually these items don't get washed, but I still like to use the proper stuffing. If you did ever want to wash something, then you've got a good stuffing the base there. And again, you know it's nice and safe and nice and clean as a stuffing. Right, I think I'm going to stuff now. Don't make it sort of too small, it makes it hard to do. And I'm not going to put too much in because a turtle actually is quite flat compared with a tortoise, but it's up to you. You could actually really mound it up and you could have more of a tortoise shape rather than a turtle's. But I'm keeping him quite flat because mine is a little turtle. Hoping I've got enough thread there. I think I should have left it a little bit longer. Otherwise I'm going to be having to get some more yarn. I think I might just do it. Let's stuff those bits in. It's not very interesting for you watching me stitch it up, but for some people stitching is an issue, so I'm hoping I might be of some help there. But whichever method suits you, that is what you need to go for. Right, that was a rather short end there, but it's enough just to give me a knot. And I'm actually going to thread it through and then thread it through and cut it off. Right, so that's my bottom. So that's, well, that's his underbelly. And this is my top. So I'm now going to actually do the stitching, and I'll show you now why I've got the pins. Now I did mine the first time and I got really quite cross with it because its positioning wasn't right. So I thought, well, how do I show this? What I basically did was, because this is now stuffed, it's not going to hurt you, I sort of tried to work out roughly where I wanted this first one. So I've actually got 6 in there. Oh, can you see that one's now a little bit far out, so I'm going to pop it there, and my last one should fit there. Now that gives me an approximate shape, so I'm going to come up where one of them pins is. Just pull my yarn all the way through. I can get rid of that pin now, so I know my next one is going to be here. So I'm going to go in where the pin is and up where the next one is, and take that one out. They're only in for a second or two. It just helps positioning, that's all. If you're happy to do it without, that's fine. But I just got cross because I just couldn't get mine positioned. Right, and take that one out. I know I said about leaving it too long, but I think I've left that a bit too long. Yeah, don't pull it too tight. So I'm going in and up to the next one. Take my pin out. So it's just a little back stitch or a straight stitch, whichever way you want to do it. It's nothing fancy, it's not any posh embroidery or anything. But I can take that last one out as well now. So I've got my positioning. And then back to where I started. There we go. Just lengthen that a bit. So I'm going to go to the next one now, rather than that one I've just gone in. Let me turn it that way. And I'm going to go about halfway down there, so in there, but then I'm going to come out there on an angle, back in and out like a little triangle there, then push the yarn back up to the next point. So can you see I've made like a little Y shape, again about halfway. Get ready to make that little Y shape. There we go, back up to the next one. So it was easier this, because I've now marked it out. I don't really have to think about where I'm going. So it's worked quite nicely doing it this way. You can do a more elaborate shell cover if you want. This is just a very basic design. You could give him a multicoloured one. I've just gone with the same colour as I used around the edge. Depends on what level your sewing skills are, but I think this is more than adequate. It's only basic, but I think everybody can have a good go at this one. You see why I said leave it long? You can see I'm pushing it now. I mean, I've only got the one. I mean, I was moaning a second ago it was too long. As it turns out, it's not. It's probably about right. And our last one. And I'm actually going to push it out underneath onto the brown because I want to tie a tiny knot and I don't want it obvious on the green. So I've pushed it through on the brown, so that's a bit short. but it's enough. Pull it tight, and again, like before, push it through, and scissor it off. So you can see we've got a little bit of a shell pattern going off there. Okay, I'm just looking at the minutes. We're up to about 25 minutes at the moment, so that's not bad. But remember, I had already done that, and I am taking it a little bit slower with the sewing, etc., to show yourselves. I'm going to now move my pins out of the way and my spare bit of yarn, and I'm just going to go on to a couple more things I want to show you before you end up sewing it all up. At the moment, he's hiding in his shell. You've just got a little tortoise shell there. Now, turtle shell. I'm going to do his head. Couldn't be any quicker. Starts exactly the same. We have 6 in 1. Just realised something I've not told you, but I'll do it after they've done this. 4, 5 and 6. Oh, or not 6. Pull it tight. Now I'm going to do 2 in each. So it's exactly the same as when we started that centre shell. So we should end up with 12. So we've got 1, 2, that's only 1, I don't know why I counted 2. That's 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So we've got 12 stitches now. Now we need to sort of shape the head round, just tighten that up again. So we're just going to have, we've got 4, 5, 6 and 7. We need 4 rounds of just DCs. I'm only going to do a couple. So remember, that's 12 stitches. That's 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So it's just 1 double crochet into each double crochet. You can already see it starting to curve, so push it out because we want it that way round, because that's his little nose, this end. We're then going to continue with another 3 rows. So I'm going to pop that to one side because I think you can see what I've done there. So we're at that point, and then I've done another 3 rows. I then actually flattened his head. Can you see how it's quite flat there? So all I've done is put a little bit of stuffing in here, flattened this off and over sewed it. So I've just sewn it together, there, and then I just stitched it onto his underbody there. Now his little feet work on the same system, a little bit fiddlier because we've got less stitches to work on, but there's a little foot, as you can see. It starts the same. It's just 6 double crochets into 1 chain, but then we're not going to increase for the legs. We're going to do a 6, a 6, a 6 and a 6 until we've got a leg length we require. You might not quite want it that long, but I think that works about okay. So I've actually got, let me double check, I've got the 6 in 1, and then I've got 2 more rounds that are just double crochets. I've got a feeling I've got somebody at the door. Or not, the dog stopped barking now. Right, so obviously we need 4 little legs. They're going to be stitched on to a position that suits you, because you can just see that. So I just stitch around the double crochet for that. So when we've got them all positioned, you see his little tummy sticking out from underneath. Well, they're quite simple to do. Something I didn't actually tell you, I just said I'd made one, was the underbelly. Why I didn't say that. The underbelly is basically the top, but without this. It's exactly the same pattern. So it's just that we've not added on the frill. So we've got the top, and his belly is the same as just the green bit on there. But on the pattern it does describe that and does say it's separate. So you can see where we're going there. Let me have a quick check on the time. I've got a few minutes. I know it has a tendency to not want to work beyond a certain point, my phone. I've just gone back to the head here. I'm just wondering whether I can get a couple more rounds so I can actually show you what I meant. I hope you can understand what I've said. I mean, you'll have your own way, as I've said before, of stitching on, entirely up to you. Right, I'm just going to try and do this quickly. I seem to only get about 32 minutes, something like that on my phone, and I'm not 100% sure how to join the videos yet, so that's why I'm trying to keep things under. Might end up with a shorter head here because of the time. Now my beads I've actually sewn on using the yarn. You can sew them on separate and you can use whatever beads you want. I've used just the black beads, as you can see there. So I've got quite large eyes, so they're sticking out. On my little tiny guy, these are just seed beads. So they're little tiny seeds. All right, I'm going to shorten his head a little bit by around. I'm going to do just one slip stitch to finish and fasten it off a little bit long. I'm going to pull that through just to make sure it's going nowhere. Let's move his little feet because they're in the way. And that's what we want. I was looking for my sewing up needle. Again, this middle bit, I'm going to use a stuffing. Stuff it in there, it saves you a bit of stuffing. Using a nice long thread, because this long thread is also going to sew it onto him. So I've just taken a tiny bit of stuffing, stuff it into his head. Oh, or not stuff it into his head, one way or the other. And when I said about over sewing, basically I've just stitched the two sides together. This one's going to look like he's only just peeping out of his shell. It's a little bit short. Yeah, so you can see how it's flat, and then that makes it easier to sew it on to the body here. So you're not having to work with two sides. So you're just picking up a piece of yarn from either side and stitching his head on. Let's have a look, I'll go that far. Can you see? So his little head is peeping out. It's not actually that bad, it's just not peeping out as much as our other one. But again, that's up to you. You can make it shorter or longer, whichever way you want, if he wants a longer neck. So basically that is it. I don't really need to show you anymore. The sewing on the legs is the same as really the head. We're just sewing round, or the body. It always follows the same system. Now, as I say, here he is in our larger size, and here he is as his little tiny brother there. So any questions about it, please ask me. Please make any comments or any other ideas that you can do for the time span. But apart from that, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and share, and hopefully I'll be back with you with another tutorial very soon. Thank you. Bye.